Hey everyone, Clarky Shy here, welcome back to another video. Today I'm back, and as of recently, as you know, I streamed the whole of Last of Us 2, and I did say for every new game that I've done on the channel, I am now going to review them. So as you know, I've done Alien Isolation, and as of the time I'm recording this, it's probably out right now, but we're here to review one of the most hated games, and one of the most hated games for sequels. It is The Last of Us 2. Now, I am not here on my own. I have got the Last of Us 2 master, Benny445, if you'd like to introduce yourself, lad.
Hi, I'm Benny445. As you heard, I am the proclaimed The Last of Us 2 master by my friends. I don't know why, but okay.
The reason why, the joke behind Benny's the Last of Us 2 master is because he seems to be one of the only people who likes Last of Us 2 in the friend group, so that's the reason why. But we're going to break this down into 5 topics. We have graphics, gameplay, soundtrack, characters, and story. There's really not much I could really think of when it comes to this, but I'd probably get the easiest and the most liked about the game out of the way, which is graphics, and then break my way down. But apart from that, let's get right into it. So Benny, give us your quick opinion on the graphics within The Last of Us 2.
Well, obviously the game is beautiful. The environment is amazing and it really helps with the immersion of the game, but also with graphics, I'm going to talk about the animations. The animations are so smooth in the game when you're shooting, when you're knifing people, when you're running away. Just best animations in a game I think I've ever seen before, and I think that's what I really want to point out. The animations are great.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with this. One of my favourite things, if we're talking about going into the environmental stuff about the world within The Last of Us 2 and the graphics, is like, I like it how when you are exploring places within the world that is The Last of Us 2, is that the tone changes. Like, everything goes more darker to a more darker theme. Like, I remember when Ellie was heading for the aquarium, everything started to rain more, started to get more darker and stuff. Her swimming across the ocean, lightning was struck down, and just everything, the tone seems to change. And then at the end of the game, how it's bright, you're trying to infiltrate the mad whatever the hell's bases to get Abby out so you can defeat her. It goes from a bright sunny day to dark, and I like the tone of that. And when we see Ellie's and Dana's house, the view is amazing in that game. The view of that bit of the game is really, really nice. So I'm glad they've done well with the graphics on there. Now, for the gameplay, Benny, what do you have to say about the gameplay for The Last of Us 2?
Well, I already talked about the amazing animations, but I also want to talk about just how in-depth the gameplay is, and it seems like every time I played it, which I played it maybe 2 or 3 times, I always find more and more things in the gameplay that just blows my mind that I could have never seen there. It's it's so detailed and amazing, and just the gunplay feels so good. When you shoot a gun, it feels like you're actually it's probably the most realistic, impactful gunplay I've ever had in my life, or played in my life. And the infected gameplay, I wouldn't say is as good as the human gameplay, but it's still pretty fun and very high, fast pace and stuff. And that freaking that Rat King boss, I wouldn't say the gameplay is the main focus in the game. But I'd say, for a story-driven game, this game has very, very good gameplay. It's incredible, and I don't think anybody ever really doubts that when it comes to Last of Us Part 2. That's the part that everybody likes.
I never saw really as much complaints for gameplay when it came to The Last of Us 2. I can definitely agree with this. The Last of Us 2 gameplay, you could compare to The Last of Us 1 if you wanted to. It's basically the same thing with switching your weapons and stuff. And like Benny said, the way, it makes you feel like you're actually shooting a weapon against enemies, zombies, clickers, whatever. Last of Us, and I'm not just talking about part 2 here and 1, just makes you feel in a realistic state. And when it comes to the weapons you have, not just particularly guns, but the melee weapons as well. You have axes, you have planks of wood. It's something in a survival type of deal where it's every man for themselves. Not everyone is willing to work together with you. There'll be other humans going after you along with the zombies, and it's simple survival, you know. You might start off with melee weapons, then go to guns if you find a big base or something like that. There's a lot of stuff to do in the gameplay, and just in general, I like the quick time events as well. Quick time events are really cool within any game, to be honest. And it's particularly a game with The Last of Us 2. it always does keep you at the edge of your seat, where you have to like break your goddamn thumb to just keep pressing square all the time. Like that shit like keeps you at the edge of your seat thinking, am I actually going to make this? Am I going to die? Like what's going to happen? Or if you're trying to just open a door but you have enemies chasing you, like that keeps you on the edge of your seat as well. Like there is a lot of shit there when it does come to the gameplay, and I really do think they did do the gameplay well within The Last of Us 2. In my second part series of when I streamed it, there was a problem that I noticed, how one of the characters, at least I'm pretty sure, Benny, I'm not, you can count me if I'm wrong here, but I remember one of the characters saying like turn your lights off so they don't see you or whatever. I made sure I turned my light off, they never saw them at all. Don't know if that's a glitch or whatever, or that's just something that they just didn't decide to fix, but I don't know, that might have been me, but all in all, I think the gameplay was actually thought out well within The Last of Us 2. If I had to compare it to 1, I don't really see a comparison really, in a sense, but I don't know, both games when it comes to gameplay, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and I like how it does that, especially when it comes to the theme that The Last of Us 1 and 2 brings to the table. So I am really glad they did suit the gameplay well with this game.
We can't talk about the gameplay without talking about the stealth. It's a very good stealth gameplay, and I compare it a lot to Metal Gear Solid stealth gameplay, which obviously that's a really well acclaimed game. I also want to talk about how well polished the game is, and that yes, it does have some glitches, but overall, I'd say it's probably one of the best tuned games I've ever played in my life.
I remember when I met Liv and her sister for the first time playing as Abby, we were getting attacked by zombies when going up the hill, and one of the zombies actually teleported up to a tree, so there was that. So make sure for jumping zombies for going in a tree. The next topic we are talking about is probably one of the things for gaming that's like, I'd say is pretty underrated for gaming as a whole. Like a lot of people do like music when it comes to gaming, but I don't see it being like a big part of it. But we were talking about the soundtrack music within The Last of Us 2. Benny, hit it away, good sir.
I unironically put this in my videos sometimes, like in the background of my commentaries, and I have no shame in it because I love this soundtrack, and it's one of my favorite parts of the game, if not my favorite part. And I think soundtracks are, like Clarky said, very underrated when it comes to making good video games. This soundtrack, so many amazing tracks in it. I think my favorite one would probably be Unbound. Just a very strong emotional track, and when they played it, it was just like it carried the scene. It was amazing, and I can't stress enough how much I love the soundtrack in this game and how important it is to the enjoyment of this game. If the soundtrack wasn't there, I'm not sure, like, I feel like just a big part would be missing. And Gustavo, however you pronounce his last name, continues just to be the greatest. The first game soundtrack was also incredible, and I think this one is even better. I'm
going to quickly put in here, when it comes to like games that are really hated, the things that like seem people like the most is the music. Like I can understand, like take Black Ops 4 for example, and I'm going to bring something up about Black Ops 4 in a second here, but I remember a lot of people were shitting on Black Ops 4, and like the only thing I heard was like, oh, like the zombies music was nice, the OSTs and all, and I was like, damn, it really seemed to be people liking the music a lot. And the reason why I said music is underrated for gaming, sure, a lot of people will be like, oh, the music is nice when playing it, but it's like, it's not a big thing talked about on Twitter, YouTube, like there might be a community out there that I might just not know about, but it's like, for like the general popularity of games in general, most people don't seem to talk about the music within them. Like people will play it and hear the music and they'll be like, oh, that's nice, and then like they don't actually like talk about it at all. But this is why I think soundtracks for games are nice, because like Benny said, he uses it in the background of his videos when he does upload. But in general, it's like I really think the soundtrack for Last of Us is really nice. Like the first one where it's the main guitar theme, I always listen to that. Well, maybe not always, but I do have that on one of my playlists on Spotify, and I actually really do like that. And also, when it comes to just The Last of Us 2, it suits the theme well. Like, it brings in the emotion depending on the music. And I like it how, if there was no soundtrack within The Last of Us 2, like the Last of Us soundtrack we all know, like Benny would say, there would be a big part missing. And I definitely agree with this, because Last of Us is amazing when it comes to its soundtrack. That is something I will always stand by and always agree with. And just going on forth with that, how you can play the guitar in this game is one of my favourite parts in this game, and especially how that links into the soundtrack in a sense, because like you can play some stuff from, I think there was one song from the previous game, I'm not sure, but all in all, it was a really, really good experience how you could play the guitar and just listen to the soundtracks were really, really nice. So honestly, the soundtrack was spot on for The Last of Us 2, in my opinion.
I love how everything in this game kind of tells its own story. Like, I feel like if you listen to the soundtrack, you would still be able to feel like the same story beats than if you just played the game. And I think it's the same thing for all the environments in the game and stuff, and just everything just feels so together, telling all the same story and the same theme and everything. And I really like how this game does that.
For the second last topic of the video, we have the characters. Now, Benny, you can share with the characters because I have a lot to say about them.
Well, there's a lot more characters in this game than the first one. I will say that. A lot of new characters on the Abby side. I will say I don't really like a couple characters on the Abby side. I think they're a lot more weaker than the Ellie and Joel side. I think Dina and Jesse could have been better, honestly, but when you talk about the main characters in the story, like Ellie and Abby, they are great. Abby is a character that's obviously very polarizing, so I guess I should talk more about her. I think she's very misunderstood, and people kind of call out the game for emotionally manipulating the player into liking Abby, but I wouldn't call it manipulation. I would call it just like helpful writing tips. You know, I'm a very I've written my own stories before. I'm very into writing. I like writing a lot, and I will say that the writing of Abby's character is very good. And I will say I started off hating Abby. I think you're supposed to hate Abby at first, but slowly she did grow on me, and I hate that. I didn't want her to grow on me. I wanted to hate Abby, but eventually she did grow on me, and I did really enjoy Abby by the end of the story. And then you got Joel. Well, we all know what happens to him. A little bit of a hole-in-one action there, but honestly, everybody hates this ending for Joel, but I don't mind the ending at all. It's a very realistic and different and surprising ending to Joel's character arc. Honestly, if everybody expected Joel just to get a huge, big, heroic death, then that's kind of their fault. And overall, I do like what they did with Joel in this, even if it's not what I want. And then you got Ellie, probably the big main character in this game. And I think she goes through a lot in this game, and she comes out broken on the other end. And I think a pretty nice touch is that Ellie's biggest fear, as she said in the first game, was ending up alone. And then by the end of this game, she ends up all alone. And I do support her decision at the end of the game. A lot of people say she should have killed Abby, which I think that would have been the crappiest ending of all time. I really like how she chooses to forgive Abby in the end instead of killing her. I think it shows a lot about the type of person Ellie is and how good of a character she is in the game.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to talk about Ellie, about killing Abby here. I really, basically, when it came to Ellie as a character, it's basically all explained. Benny just basically explained it for me. Ellie killing Abby in the end, I agree in a sense, but disagree. I can definitely agree to the fact that, Abby's done a lot of bad shit, and, looking at Joel, Ellie had a quick flashback before drowning Abby. She saw Joel smile, just sinking, and it made me think to myself when I saw that, and I was like, this makes it look like saying, oh, is this really what Joel wanted? This was his mistake. He killed her father. This was nothing to do with me in a sense. Well, it did, but she wasn't the one who killed her father and all. But it's like, did she really want to further the problem by just getting revenge? Honestly, you can understand. You're losing someone important to you, and Joel is one of the most legendary characters in games. But it's like, to go that far though, it's like you're going to lose more people. Like, you've lost Jesse, you've like lost Jesse to death, you lost Joel. Well, it was to be expected because Abby did want revenge, and then of course you've lost trust in Dina because Dina just didn't want you to keep going, and then Tommy, you just lost respect just because you wouldn't go for Abby, but you did. But at the end of the day, you let her live, forgiving her because you just wanted it all to stop. So I can understand that. Abby's side of the story, I could definitely understand her like friends and stuff. They were not as strong as we. They were not as like strong and more passionate, more connected as like the other character friends we had on the Ellie and Joel side. But when it came to Abby's side, like just Abby as a character, I did not hear her at all. Like Benny said at the start, it makes you feel like you need to hate her, and then later on, like you need, like you're understanding, like, oh, like you're growing onto her. That's how I felt personally, and I think that's how everyone felt with The Last of Us 2. You see her kill an amazing character, Joel, motherfucking Joel, for crying out loud, and then you go ahead and then you're like, man, she's been through a lot of shit as well. Like, I think if we just saw her kill Joel and then the whole game was just about Ellie going up against Abby, it's like we would need some sort of explanation as to why Abby was going to kill Joel. Like, I think it done well, and like it would show a good way of like what Abby was doing while in Seattle for the 4 days that Ellie was in Seattle as well. So it was a good way, but yet again, the main reason why people do hate Abby, and this is what Benny said, is because you started off hating her because they killed Joel, and then when you saw her backstory, it grew onto you. She lost her father because of Joel. A lot of shit happened, right? A lot of shit. So it's like, I don't hate Abby as a character, but there is a reason to, because like they killed Joel. But by all means, I don't think she's a bad character. I think she was misunderstood in a sense. But I can definitely understand like the whole point of why people would say that's like bad writing. Personally, to me, I don't think it is. Definitely could be some improvements, but I don't think it was all in all bad, personally. I just think it was like, oh, simply, hey, listen, she's been through a lot of shit too, you know? And like, I feel like they pronounced it wrong. Like, this is why I said in my streams as well, how they should have shown the flashbacks first at the start of the game, then continually progress forward. In a sense, I can see how it would work with Ellie if they showed their flashbacks at the start of the game and making their way forward. But with Abby showing her flashbacks at the start, I don't know how that would work. I don't know, honestly. But in a sense, if we saw Abby's flashbacks first at the start of the game and then made her way forward, I don't think people would have like hated her as much as we then just saw her as a new character, playable, kill Joel, and then learn what she's been through. You hate her and then you start to like her a bit because you know what she's been through. So I think it would have been better if we saw Abby how she was before her dad died, up until to the point where we ended off at the game. But apart from that, I think it was all well and done with the characters. I can definitely understand everything, why people hate Abby, and some people might hate Ellie now in the second game compared to the first. Joel, I don't need to explain much. Dina, I really don't need to explain. It was just someone helpful and loving to Ellie, and just someone caring. Tommy, a bit of both. I don't really know what to say. Jesse, he was just someone who wanted to help.
Tommy's a man.
Yeah,
Sorry.
like Jesse always wanted help, even if it was like the ex and stuff, didn't really give a shit as long as his friends were alive and all. That's all he cared about. And in general, I think the characters were well played out. I think Abby's side of the story, when it came to just her character building, could have done a bit more better, but I thought it was okay for her character overall, in my opinion. Now we're getting to the last section of this video of The Last of Us 2 review, and this is the topic that people hate the most, which is the story. Most people in The Last of Us 2, from what I've gathered, most people seem to hate the story in The Last of Us 2 compared to the first one. So me and Benny are going to give our opinion. So we'd probably save the most hated topic of The Last of Us 2 till last. So Benny, give us your opinions and thoughts on the story of The Last of Us 2.
Alright, first off, we have to talk about the leaks of the story. Basically, the entire story of The Last of Us Part 2, to an extent, was leaked. Joel's death was leaked and all of this stuff. And I just want to say, if the leaks never happened and the game was just released, I don't think this game would be hated nearly as much. when people saw the leaks, there was outrage because they were taken out of context and people didn't realize what they meant in the game's context. So there was just this huge outrage and this like internet hype, and everybody started hating on The Last of Us Part 2 bandwagon. If the leaks never happened, I don't think it would be nearly as hated. Do I think it would be as loved as the first game? No. But it wouldn't be nearly as hated. A lot of people say this game has bad writing. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. People seem to not like the writing in this game because it isn't what they expected and it's not what they wanted out of the game. But people need to realize this is a character. This is a story about the characters, The Last of Us characters, not you. You are not in the story. This is not your story. People need to realize that this game was very character driven, and basically how they wrote it was, what would this specific character do in this moment? A lot of people don't agree with a lot of the characters' decisions, like Ellie's decision at the end of the game, but they gotta realize this isn't you making the decision. I don't care if you would have killed Abby in that situation. When you're looking at Ellie and what Ellie would do in that situation, she would not kill Abby. That's not who Ellie is. That's not the character who she is. And I really like that they stayed true to these characters, and overall kept the story very grounded. Like the fact that Joel in the last game, at the end of the last game, literally murdered an entire hospital of fireflies and scientists who are trying to work a cure and stuff. In the world of The Last of Us, you cannot just go insane and murder an entire hospital of scientists and cure developers and just expect to get away with it. Like, there's going to be consequences for your actions, and that's something that really ticks me off in a lot of other other stories, is that the main character, they can just do whatever they want and they don't pay the consequences for their actions. The Last of Us does not do that, and instead they have Joel has to pay the consequences for what he did, and that was beat to death with a golf club. And as well as people just don't like that ending for Joel. But as I said earlier, I think overall, it doesn't matter if you like it or not. I don't think you're supposed to like it. And I think it's supposed to fuel you into this road of revenge that Ellie's about to take. But by the end, slowly, you will start to realize that you don't want to kill Abby. And if you still want to kill Abby by the end, I think that's more of you didn't understand the game or what the story Naughty Dog is trying to tell you. And I think that's the main problem. People just think they're supposed to like all the characters. But the truth is, you don't have to like a character. They just need to be interesting. And overall, I think the story is way too overhated. And I do understand why some people would hate it. It's not for everybody. But I'd say the main thing that I like is that it's different and it went in a different direction than any other game has went to. And it's very ambitious. And I like when kind of stories break the rules and are very unconventional, and that's what this game is, and I think they do it very well. The voice acting is superb. So many amazing performances with the voice actors, and the pacing, the storytelling itself could be better with the pacing and this overall structure. Like, I don't think Abby's storyline should have been like 11 hours. I think it should have been maybe like 5. I just was in love with the story as I was watching it unfold, and I don't understand the unnecessary hate for it. And it's part of why this game is, in my opinion, a flawed masterpiece.
The storytelling, the pacing can definitely do better. By all means, when talking about this at the end of my stream of the finale of The Last of Us 2 when I was streaming it, I did say I did think the story was okay. I personally liked it, but I definitely think there was a lot of improvements. And what Benny did say about the pacing and stuff, I definitely agree. The pacing should have been a bit more better, with Abby's story being more to 5 hours or maybe a tiny bit more less. But apart from that, I thought it was okay overall. The story just building, like driving you just to show your hate and anger towards Abby, and again just on how then it just goes to liking her after seeing what she felt. Again, I did say this when talking about the characters. I feel like, again, they should have showed Abby's, like, the flashbacks that we got of Abby to when we saw her dad alive to the point where we saw her at the end of the game. I felt like that would have been better if we saw how Abby was years ago at the start of the game to where she was now. And I kept saying this when it came to Ellie's story, but when it came to Ellie's story, I didn't care if the flashbacks weren't at the start of the game. I thought they were fine, but when it came to Abby's flashbacks, I was like, damn, that should have been at the start of the game for Abby's side of the story, and then we could have gone to know her better personally. I feel like that would have been more fit, and like Benny says, like, actions will have consequences. Joel did take down a whole entire hospital. It's to be expected. Like, everyone in the world of The Last of Us is not willing to work together. There will be groups of people, the wolves, scars, and in this case there was the Fireflies cooperating with the wolves because, well, the wolves weren't a thing at the time, but Abby did go ahead to become a wolf, and along with Owen and such, and then Owen left, and then yada yada, but you get what I mean. Like, Abby then decided to work with the wolves and still keep going on 4 years later, decide to try and find who killed her father. She didn't know the name, but she didn't really know who he actually was until 4 years later that she does find Joe. And that's where it just all tumbles down. So again, I think the story was okay, could have definitely done way better. I do like it, but I don't think it wasn't the personal best compared to the first one. I thought the story in The Last of Us 2 was again okay. I liked it. I just think it could have been better with a lot more improvements just compared to the first. It could have been an amazing story compared to the first game if they just done the pacing a bit more right and just everything else. I thought the story was okay, and I like what Benny said. It was a flawless... No, what did you say, Benny, again? I can't remember what you said.
I called it a flawed masterpiece. It means it's a masterpiece, but it does have a lot of flaws to it.
Yeah, so like Benny said, the pacing and stuff does have its problems. But again, I thought the story was okay. I don't think it was a masterpiece, but just due to the fact that there was just that I think Abby's flashback should have been at the start of the game, so we could have known what she went through at the start to where she was when she arrived at Jackson. But apart from that, I think the story was okay overall. I liked it, but I think the first game story was definitely better overall. Last of Us 2 story, I thought it was okay, I liked it, but there was definitely flaws in there, and there had to be some improvements that would have made it better. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about the story, because Benny basically summed up, and hey, this is why I call this man the Last of Us 2 master. Like, he basically takes my points right from my mouth, so there's really not all much to say apart from the fact that that's really all my opinions for the story. So yeah. But that's basically all the topics we have basically said in the video that we plan to do. So Benny, do you have any other words to say about The Last of Us 2?
It's good.
Okay.
You should play it before you talk bad word.
Okay. If you had to rate The Last of Us 2 out of 10, Benny, because I know I do this on my Zombies replay series. Listen, the next episode's coming for Die Rise, I promise, alright? But if you had to rate The Last of Us 2 out of 10, what would it be, and a reason why?
About a 9 out of 10. I think it does some really groundbreaking and amazing things, and despite, like, there's so many flaws. Like, I can talk on and on about, like, how I think they could have done some things better, but overall, I just think the things they did are right, and, like, just thought, and, yeah, the things they did right, I would say it's enough to get it to a 9 out of 10.
Okay, damn, interesting. Now, I did give my personal out of 10 on The Last of Us 2. Everything that I've basically said about all the points within this is my explanation for this. I'm either going to have to give it, I did say a 7 out of 10, but I'm still in between to be whether it be a 6 or a 7, but I'm more going towards a 7 out of 10 for The Last of Us 2. I don't really need to give an explanation, because all my opinions on the topics I did talk about is basically my explanation for that exact 7 out of 10 reason. But guys, that's really all I have to say about for The Last of Us 2. Benny, I thank you for coming on, good sir. I'll leave Benny's link in the description below to his YouTube and Twitter, and I did say mention something about Black Ops 4. Benny actually made a video on reviewing Black Ops 4 Zombies for his personal reasons, on his personal opinions on Black Ops 4. Amazing video, by the way, if you do not like Black Ops 4, so I'd recommend you go check it out, boys. But apart from that, all in all, Thank you, Benny, for hopping on. I will leave his Twitter and YouTube in the link in the description below. If you're all new to the channel, please subscribe, leave a like, click the notification bell, always subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section down below, out of 10, what you guys think of The Last of Us 2, if you have played it, and the reason why. But guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video live stream, boys. And goodbye!